Wait a minute. That's the wrong movie. Uh, we got back-to-back interviews today with this gentleman, and it turns out that he's a movie fan. I am such a movie fan. He might be a bigger movie fan than I am, but he's also is really great. He reached out to me. I think we're both friends or members, or past members of an entrepreneurs organization, and who happened to be traveling through Seattle with his lovely lady. Came by. We had barbecue in the backyard. Really got a chance to hang out and meet. He recently was also too hanging around at my conference, which I really appreciated. And he's doing something I think which is definitely valiant, which is fighting a homelessness, right? It's something that's a big problem, especially in my two, somewhat hometowns, San Francisco and Seattle being probably some of the top two locations in the country with homelessness challenges. And so let's find his take on it. Let's welcome the one and only, and probably one of the best names in the world, Tiger Todd.
Thanks so much for having me, John. Pleasure. And thanks so much for the great barbecue with you and Donna.
You're welcome, Tiger.
Oh,
I
what a
love that you
treat.
love barbecue. So, it's so great to have you on here. Thanks for joining us too last week. I just noticed finally for the first time too the Batman in the right corner. Why did it take me so long to notice your Batman in the right corner?
Yeah, well, see, this is the new office. So I moved over the summer after 9 years in the same home, and so it's been hard to kind of figure out what to do with all the herobilia. And I actually have a whole room at the office that's herobilia. So a couple items are making their way here. And I think because of the ceiling height, you see, I've got a big Marvel encyclopedia and
Oh my gosh, yeah, I like the
and a
Superman.
Cavill up there. So yeah, so we've. But yeah, I'll rely on your expertise on how to fashion the rest of the room.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Todd, Tiger, for doing that. So, of course, some of my friends don't know you, and they really are very interested in this homelessness piece. Can you just introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Well, I think today it's like at any point in time, right? It's like velocity is a point in time, and today I'm a homelessness prevention consultant. I was the scientist in the 90s that discovered the four things that create and perpetuate homelessness and homeless people. And so I assist cities and schools in preventing the problem from growing into the next generation. And I don't know what level you want to go into it, but it is kind of a different approach. I didn't think it was a different approach. When I first started, I said, well, everyone can see this. Humans are unique to the planet. If this is a human problem, we have to first get back to the core definition of what a human is. And then once we identify what the humans learned, we can then stop teaching those things and teach something else and have a different outcome.
Yeah, have a different outcome. So, I mean, what I've learned from hanging around you, Tiger, is that you really have a system that can help prevent people from going into the system, right? I think that's really the key, because once you do that, if you can, once they get into the system, of course, it's even harder to get out. So that prevention, I think, is more cost effective, more what I don't know, lots of different other descriptor terms for that. Is that what you've seen, or is that why you're so passionate around this form of the work?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I got the first, it's the numbers 10,213 homeless off the streets of my hometown, and I think I was a little miffed that not one of them homeless in my hometown was from my hometown, right? So that was an interesting data point. But I was invited to talk to kids in school, and I got to a middle school, and I realized they had already learned the 4 habits of homelessness by 7th grade. And so you want to talk about systemic education that people don't, it's easy to know that if you go to USC and you learn engineering, probably going to become an engineer. Right. If you go to another college and you learn psychology, you probably end up being a psychologist. And so what we didn't realize is when we have negative outcomes in our world, that there's also a curriculum and experts, teachers, right? And then some sort of homework done over time that produces this outcome. And so if we don't interrupt those, we can't prevent our teens, our kids, from becoming the next, adults. So.
Can you share the 4 factors? I would love to hear what the 4 factors are.
Well, sure. I contrast them to what I learned from my dad as a scared little 8-year-old. My dad was an entrepreneur, and I remember asking him, for milk. We were out of milk in the fridge, and he said, then we're gonna have to go sell something or provide a service for somebody. And by the way, this blows away all my, I just left a teacher conference, and I said, yeah, even food needed to be earned in my household. But I kind of, as I looked back on how I viewed the homeless and why it was so fast at the speed of movies, right? Within 2 hours, this mass majority of homeless people changed. And, why was it so? And so I look back and he says, oh yeah, my dad taught me what I've now called the 4 laws of entrepreneurship. Right? Pillars, right? Principles. And the first one is, we add value first. Right. So we plant a seed before we expect a crop, right? Farmers, the first entrepreneurs. We send our ship out before we expect our ship to come in, which is pretty funny. So many people waiting for their ship to come in, never sent one out. And so there has to be a first action of value added. And we see that with most of our friends, is they're those kinds of people. When I walked the line with the homeless, their first habit was asking me for something.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I can help them to flip that, to get them not to ask for my stuff, but to ask me, what must I do to have stuff like you? Right? This magic question, what must I do? 25% out of this condition, this learned condition that I call homelessness. I mean, not houselessness, lots of reasons people can be houseless, but homelessness it's that same kind of thing someone goes through over and over and over again. And that's what needs to be broken, so to speak. Second law from my dad is, I know we have extreme accountability and extreme ownership, but this is even more extreme because this is called take the blame. Right. This is when, it's not that the customer is always right, but the customer is always the customer. And so you find a way to take the blame, even for stuff you didn't do. And of course, their habit was blame. And I don't doubt, especially, people that ended up homeless in Las Vegas, I don't doubt that what they were blaming, that bitch I married, my boss is a jerk, I don't doubt that it wasn't true. It's just, as you and I know, we can't continue to blame and then have a positive relationship going forward with the next people we meet, right? Law 3 from my dad, I use the Emerson quote, every man is my superior in some way, in that I learned from him or her. And so recognizing that stuff I can't possibly know, you're really great at stuff I suck at, right? But every one of us has something that we know, and then we should learn from that. And I found out I call that vertical learning. Right, where we meet people as if you're Mr. Miyagi or Edna Mode in The Incredibles, and there's that, what was the name of Cole Trickles? Since you mentioned Days of Thunder, Cole Trickles' mentor, Robert Duvall's
the guy
character.
With the cougar. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Robert Duvall's character, right? So there's that expert in every one of the movies, and so what happens is we give them every kid in America gets one in public school. But they don't know that that's the key to their transformation from 3rd grader into 4th grader, from 4th grader into graduate. And so that we call that vertical learning. Learned that from my dad. And I noticed the homeless had this horizontal learning. I'd walk the line and I'd say, hey, just do this. I could just go ask my friend over here, get that job. And they would go group up and then start talking about me with each other. And so anyway, habit 3, horizontal learning, law 3 of entrepreneurs, vertical learning. And then finally, when you do get an Obi-Wan Kenobi or an Edna Mode or Mr. Miyagi, you just do it to prove it, right? Law 4 is when you get the expert and he says, wax the car, you just do it to prove it. You can't know, you can't understand because you're not that person. So you just do it to prove it. And so, okay, we trust and we do it. The homeless want to talk back or tell a story. And I even learned, I saw that in your fantastic engaging virtual meetings conference about how much people make excuses or want to make excuses. And here was this group you brought together that was no excuse. We were looking for things to take to the bank, and we're going to do it. And then the very next day, I watched those people say, "Wow, everything's so much better." So, anyway, 4 habits versus 4 laws.
Thank you for that. Let's see. I got the bag. What was number 2?
Blame.
Oh yeah,
but I put them down as verbs. So it's begging, and then it's blaming, and then it's learning horizontally.
Yeah.
And then it's talking back, telling a story. We labeled it being unteachable, but it manifests as talking back or telling a story.
Yeah, I read this really interesting book around it. It was like, I think it was called Will Work for Food or something. And it was a guy who was a PhD who was suddenly, he was like in between jobs. So he went out and just wanted to see what it was like to ask for money. And then he started diving really deep into it. And he found out, one, some of these people were making a lot of money.
Well, yeah, some do. And I don't mind the hustle, right?
Yeah.
It's just if you don't know what to do with the money when you get it, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, and you're going to spend in the wrong place. You know, the second thing though that really came around to it, I think that's this part here, that mindset of having to ask everybody for something as opposed to you adding value and doing something. That's where the mindset, that small little mindset, it seems really small, but it can have these cascading impacts on you, which is, you know, that I guess that the way majority of us are there, like we're trying to at least do fair or some other greater value, right? That we want our work to be valued so that, you know, we're giving more, as much or more than the value that people are receiving.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I initially wondered, you know, why weren't the kids raised like I was raised? And of course, we can't ever expect that. But if it's not being imparted in your household growing up, then it needs to come from another source. And if every employer is that way, boy, that needs to be embedded in public schools. You know, because, you know, it's one thing to say, let's, you know, teach them robotics and STEM and STEAM in order for them to work in this modern workforce. But if you don't also teach the characteristics that we see throughout the movies and we see obviously in entrepreneurs' lives, it doesn't do any good. They're always going to retreat back to horizontal learning with a pack of employees and badmouth the boss.
Okay, well, now of course you did mostly, I believe, face-to-face work prior to this, and now in this last 2 years you've had to, you know, shift like everybody else. I'm kind of curious, what have you seen in your shifts, and what were some of your great successes in translating this material online?
Well, I think the first one was, you know, how hard-headed I was, you know, because I'm a believer in, you know, in extraordinary. I like the Emerson quote, right? That, you know, let certain people are just extraordinary. They're superior. They're different. You can't replace Bono and still have U2, right? And so there is the need for something that's not scalable as a person, but is totally scalable in terms of how you reach others if you're the one with that gift, for example. But I was hard-headed because I said, well, how can I do that? I'm a fan of this experience, this hero school envelope that's created, right? Because, you know, I do the things I know, and then the magic just, you know, happens. So if I can create this situation, this circumstances, right, the magic happens. And I just said, well, this can't happen, right? Instead of saying, how can this happen? I was falling into my own trap. And I said, well, this just can't happen, you know, virtually, or can't happen another way. And without thinking that something more might happen. And that's what I learned through this journey after I met you. Actually, I'd met you, and we had a call that you did from Seattle, like during the pandemic. And I was like fascinated that I said, you know what, I feel like I know these people better than people I just, you know, help save their school, you know. And it was right. It was a Friday night call, you know. So yeah, so it's been a real mind shaper for me. I just wish I had not been so hard-headed for so long.
And you know, the hard-headed, maybe what I love to always tell people like who are in change, or maybe, you know, in different fields that are with this, is sometimes we have to go back and have that experience. Like one of my really good friends, right, recently we were presenting together, and the leadership team asked him not to speak, and it was really jarring for, you know, any of us. Like we're 20, 30 years into the field, and he writes some of the best stuff that I've seen around, you know, teaming and simulations. And so it turned into his own simulation, you know. But with a lot of impact, right? There's definitely a lot. I mean, there's definitely a lot of places where you can say he's right to every feeling he's having. And sometimes you got to go through that to remember the emotions of what you're, you know, the people that you're speaking to or that you're working with are going through. Because it's hard to remember, you know, what homelessness is like unless you're homeless.
Well, yes, and I would say that I'm always hesitant too. I mean, I'm hesitant to give credit to the failure, right? I don't think that, for a kid or even the homeless, it's a common homeless phrase, it's a common addict phrase. Well, unless you've been through it, you can't know. No, I know because I haven't been through it. I am, Terminator 2, right? Come with me if you want to live, right? That's right. You don't have to be on the floor getting your butt kicked, right? You should be the experts, the ones supposed to elevate them out of it. And so, yeah, we have this consensus, and amongst people who are in it, that they feel like, that kind of key word here is feel like they have to be in it. But in terms of an awakening, I think you're totally right. We do not see we can't experience the impact of something we say we know until we're facing it ourselves. It was a live speech I was doing back in August with mayors and legislators, and I just, here's a room of 200, and I said this, and it's like you can't argue with it. But when I was done, most of them had the same 4 habits as the homeless. They didn't want a solution. They wanted more money from the Fed. They're begging, right? It wasn't a problem to solve. It was blame. It was so-and-so caught. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. And I've known this. I've written on this for 20 some years. And still, until I actually experienced where I just spoken and like, really? I just told you. It's like that scene out of Zoolander, right? With our David Duchovny's our hand model in the what is it? What do they call those places? Graveyards, right? So he's in the graveyard, right? And but why male models? He says, I just told you. So I had this epiphany moment, and I'm thinking, oh my God. So I'm with you on that one. I trust your wisdom.
Well, I do think experience is a great teacher. Actually, there's a gentleman, or there's a top chef here in Seattle who teaches on hunger. And what did we do? Oh, yeah. So they have an experience where you come in and this is lunch for the day, right? And basically, there's a class of 100, right? 2 people are selected and they have this amazing feast. Like this is like a full table of stuff over here, right? What is it, like 5 or 10 people like actually have a loaf of bread to share, and like, maybe 60 or 70 people have like one pot, or no, 30 or 40 people have like one pot of rice to share with, like, it's like a little cup of rice, and there's like 50 people, and the rest of the people, right, have nothing. And then they let the simulation run for like an hour, right? And it was really fascinating because, of course, what happens is if you have no food, you try and figure out, like, someone tried to steal food, who was like the person who got no food from the table that had all this abundance. All the numbers were actually based on statistics. The percentage of the world that is living at that level with food. And so I'm kind of curious. You said that you have the hero class experience. What are some of the experiences that you create inside that class that you feel are really effective in what you're trying to do?
Well, I think they're most of the things that we know, but because we haven't labeled them or quantified them. I mean, I tell you the 4 laws of an entrepreneur, and you may not have heard those before, but once I say them, I mean, I don't know of a business owner or a founder that doesn't, say, oh yeah, that's it, right? And then in a hero school, we use all of the math I derived from movies in the 90s. And we also use things that we had to create a school of psychology based on the real world. And you did point out my Batman. And so I proposed to them that there's a Bruce Wayne self and a Batman self. And if one of the issues, I know it was Muriel James and Dorothy Youngward many years ago, speaking of the San Francisco area, Berkeley, they wrote Born to Win. Based on transactional analysis, Dr. Eric Byrne, 1968. And so they said that losers are repeaters, meaning they're seeing the same day over and over again, no advancement, and just decay and erosion, right? Now, it's horrible.
I get to drop my Groundhog's Day reference. Okay.
Right. Don't drive angry. But when you see this repeated history aspect of Groundhog Day or Happy Gilmore, right? Then something needs to change. It's usually, of course, the insight of a mentor. Well, I'm coming into this hero school envelope knowing this about them, and then giving them a way out of it, a way that the American Psychological Association doesn't know. In fact, I studied 55 years at the APA, read over 3,000 documents, and they had no idea why human beings repeated history. And then I give you Happy Gilmore. It's the reason why he just goes a little job for a little while, and then he starts again somewhere else and starts again somewhere else and goes through all that, is because every time an expert or a mentor or a teacher or a boss came to him saying, just do this, they wanted to talk back or tell a story. And so there we use these movie truths. I'll give you two of them. I say everyone has a Bruce Wayne self and a Batman self. And I think it manifests at 13 years old. It's the split I found in history, mythology, religion, that we might be born one homogeneous little seed, but something happens. We undergo a split. The human being undergoes this split. And now, if we're unaware, but we're responsible for developing both our Bruce Wayne self, right? Someone who can do well in society, and then the one that fulfills a calling, has something special on their life that they also have to fulfill. And I see this over and over again with the homeless. I see it with disgruntled teens and the letters they write me. And that is, they want to go do this gifted thing, but they say, I don't think I need this, 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 and this. And eventually it's one or the other upsets their journey and causes them to start over again. So that's how we and once they're aware of that, they're confessing it. And I'll just give you this last one from Kierkegaard, right? He says, when you label me, you negate me. And we know it's a strategy of many people to use labels on people to reduce them, usually to make us feel better about ourselves. And yet, I know we hate to be labeled, but we love to label ourselves. And one of the beautiful parts of a hero school experience, whether it's homeless or entrepreneurs or staff for Hilton, is that they want to label themselves, and they start to address their own deficiencies, things they've avoided, and now they're more likely to go ask the expert, oh, can you teach me how to have engaging virtual meetings? Can you teach me how you're able to, to take care, to do all this stuff at the end of the day that I have neglected? So it's really empowering once they see a better framework. It's not just you were a repeater or a loser. It's that because I hadn't developed this part, I still have a third grader inside in this category. So
I'd love to hear, without naming names, can you share some of a story or two of the best things that ever happened at Hero School or, related style trainings?
Well, I wish I had prepared that one, but I'll tell you one that I just actually brought up to someone today. I'm in the kind of the 10-year. Every 10 years, I get a letter. And after 50 some thousand successes and a few thousand failures, I've got a lot of letters, but they come almost exactly 10 years after the person was in that hero school experience. And so I get letters where the person is now a therapist. The person is now this, that, and other. But there was one that I got recently from Florida. And it was a guy that was in my class 10 years earlier. And it's like he finally had his awakening. And so it was not had the class and then realized have to do this, have to take care of business, be responsible, go back and, take care of unfinished business and the bridges I may have burned or whatever. But in this case, he came to 10 years later, right? Because as you know, so many people satiated with drugs, and yet you're just this chemical plant. Right? Let alone you're what Nietzsche called someone of late cultures and broken lights. You don't know who you are, even where to go. But when he came out of this thing and wrote me a letter so clear, so almost erudite, and but writes this letter saying, I get it now. And he started to quote stuff as if he had the class yesterday, but it was 10 years ago, right? And what that does is, right, so that to me is an experience of, okay, even if I don't feel like, right, your emotions, I don't feel like I had the best experience for them. I have to have faith in the process, and of course, faith that that seed was planted, and eventually it will grow up and become.
Yeah, it's what some of my friends called the ripple. Right, the ripple is when you throw a rock in like a big lake or something, it goes out, and if you wait long enough, eventually, if it's really still, it'll come back. And so a ripple, they said, is with a few times that when you find out that your training is actually really effective.
Oh, wow.
So that's called a ripple. That's like the same people who were referencing the starfish story, right? You're
Sure.
never gonna save them all. Like, I made a difference in that one.
It mattered to that one.
That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's great. I mean, there's nothing more satisfying, I think, than in that, which is like you really help somebody and to help them to the core of who they are, right? That's the strongest thing I think you can change is your identity. And if you take your identity from homeless and helpless to I'm a therapist, right? I'm a skilled in my field,
Yeah.
I'm an expert, right? I'm contributing. There's so many different changes with that. And so, okay, so now let's transition. Okay. Most inspiring movies to you, movies that like make you want to be a better person.
Well, definitely Shooter with Mark Wahlberg.
So might as well throw Dumb and Dumber in there, right?
I don't drink, and I think Dumb and Dumber, you need to have some alcohol accompanying the movie. So, some like what I call a karaoke lubricant, right? Some sort of libation. But I bring that up. So there's something about certain movies that you watch over and over again, right? And one of the ones I've picked on myself for, because I got favorite movies, right? You got The Matrix, and when it first came out in 1999, it's true. There is this other world, right? And I always deal in two lives, two journeys simultaneously. It's every movie, but they did so well, and they were so ahead of their time in this filmmaking or in this envisioning of this this world and this characteristic, and of course, and then The Fifth Element. There were a ton of movies around that time. In fact, if you went back to 1994 and you got Forrest Gump. Of course, you've got Speed, which, gave us a movie that was well put together. But you have Clear and Present Danger, right? The Tom Clancy novel, and then Harrison Ford as Jack Ryan. You've also got the movie no one went to see, but everyone's seen, The Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, top 10 movie for sure.
Right. And so we have a movie that defines terms that we think we know, but it defines it by the action of our protagonist. And right, like get busy living or get busy dying. Yeah. And what does that mean? Right. It gives us a way to do things through somebody else that we might not have the courage to do ourselves, or we might doubt ourselves. And so we don't try each day chipping away at the wall between us and the life we want. But we can see Andy Dufresne must have done that all 16 years through all kinds of horrific suffering. And he didn't talk about it or complain about it every day, So those are the impactful movies. I love The Fifth Element, but if I'm going to pick one movie, are you ready? One movie, what I think is a perfect movie, Kung Fu Hustle. Totally. This is the epic hero's journey. It's the mythological, it's the spiritual, it's the promise. It's just, to me, the most complete movie. And the escalating violence where you think you're the biggest person, right? You think you're the toughest one, so you bully this, but then there's another one. It's like this, one little fish eats another fish, but then there's a bigger fish, right? It's what they did with Avatar with the big flying creatures, and you think no one's going to attack you from above because you're the biggest and baddest. Anyway, so I love it. Love that movie.
If you haven't seen Kung Fu Hustle, that's director Stephen Chow. And Stephen Chow, my kids turned me on to when they said, we got to watch this movie called Shaolin Soccer.
Oh.
And it's Shaolin monks who learn how to play soccer. And it is the funniest, most irreverent, right? He also created a style of film that most people were not doing. I think that's really the key. And Kung Fu Hustle really brings that into light, and really reimagined some things, which, The Matrix, of course, too, fell in love with martial arts movies. And like The Matrix, right? The Matrix brought this new level of martial arts into American films, and Kung Fu Hustle did a little bit of that too. Like for instance, did you know that? So what's common in Chinese or Asian martial arts movies is what's called wire work, which is you put somebody on a harness, right? And so when they jump, they can do these spectacular things like hang in the air and jump and freeze and things like that. And the Matrix used a lot of those techniques inside of that. Kung Fu Hustle, he does use that. My favorite scene inside of the movie, hopefully not without spoiling the ending. We're talking about guppy fish. You know, all they're doing is these other cool things. Like one of them is they turn a musical instrument. Like when he strums a musical instrument, like a part of your body gets cut off, right?
Right. It's actually sending out the unseen, but that's the key, right? We know the unseen exists.
Oh yeah, it's
right.
Like
and
words. Yeah,
how else do you describe the power, the human or whatever it is, the power of flow, right? Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, you know, and they do that in the movies, right? If it's done well, like it is in Kung Fu Hustle, we actually get to experience these things we aspire to, you know, whether it be spiritually or just, you know, centeredness.
Okay, so you're doing centeredness, right? And so like maybe you know if some in martial arts they have iron things like iron fist or iron, you know, palm or whatever. And at the end of the movie, this guy learns a technique that basically creates an imaginary gigantic palm, and it like what you see is in the ground is an impression of this gigantic palm of which the person is like this small that you completely crushed him. It's like one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Every scene they just got better, and I mean it was like more and more. It's thank you, Stephen Chow, for making this masterpiece in your lifetime.
So why movies for you? Why are movies like a core theme? Like you bring it into your training, it's in your personal life, right? They mean something to you. Where's your passion for movies come?
Well, if I retired from a chain of electronics stores, right? So I founded a little store and then expanded it to a few stores. And so when you're selling TV, video, sound systems, you watch the same little snippet of a movie hundreds of times.
Oh, because you like all the TVs are running stuff all day long.
Yeah, or you're doing a demonstration and you're trying to show somebody how this sound or impact, right? And you're showing.
You have favorite parts of. Oh, what was a favorite demo movie then, right?
Favorite ones in the old days were like Ghostbusters.
Yes.
Right. And so there was the humorous part, but then of course there were also, you know, the sound to see if your sound system could handle it when, you know, Zool, the minion of Gozer, would spoke, right? And
like the big storm.
Yeah, sure, right. That was one of the big demo ones. I'm trying to think Top Gun, right? When the first Top Gun came out at that time, right? Yeah. So
by the way, I finally got to see Top Gun Maverick. I was late, and it was still good.
And Top Gun Maverick, Tom used one of my favorite quotes from Hero School. It's actually one of my lines in the movie. I was feeling like I was so honored. Thank you, Tom, for saying, you know, because it was an experience I had that came up with this phrase, don't think, just do.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, mine was helping a family get out of an apartment complex where there were gunshots every night, so their kids didn't get killed. But it was memorialized there in that film, and especially, you know, being the old pilot I am.
You're a pilot?
No, the old pilot of helping other people, like Tom did. It was my metaphorical pilot.
Metaphorical pilot. Oh yeah, like pilot. Oh, it's the pilot instructor pilot, right? It's the pilot who's teaching. So yeah,
right. It's like my captain. Someone I had this morning I did some volunteer work, so I had my Superman undershirt there, and someone said, Superman. I said, no, Superman's dad. Let's get that clear. I'm not leaping any tall buildings with a single bound. Anyway.
Okay, so but why? So the movies came from this old company. I mean, is there more to that?
I guess so, because, you know, what we called a hero school, right? Something that hero school was a philosophy, but it was literally me teaching gym full of kids, or in the first case, all these homeless. You're trying to drive a point home with something that's already embedded in their psyche, and movies do that. right? I mean, how many times have you pulled a tablecloth out and said, and the flowers are still standing, Ghostbusters, right? Right. And so I had so much of these in me that in order to, and again, I was programmed by the movies. In other words, programmed in that when I had the first 1,854 homeless people in a park to teach them how not to be homeless, I just assumed, hey, I got 2 hours to get this done, or they're going to stay homeless or whatever. I didn't think that it wasn't possible. I didn't think just like a movie, relatable character, conflict and obstacles to accomplish the impossible. And right, the principles of every movie. And so this whole wealth of I liken myself to Jamal in Slumdog Millionaire. I might not know the million things that somebody taught in this university, but I know the 16 things that line up to changing somebody very quickly. So yeah, movies. Okay, so she's a dog. Anyway, you got me on Ghostbusters now. So
let's continue on the part, which is like, I finally saw the new Ghostbusters Afterburner, which was also pretty decently entertaining. All right, it was
Afterlife, right? Is that?
Oh yeah, sorry, Afterlife.
Yeah.
Afterlife.
Mm-hmm. And it was so touching too. They did such a beautiful job with it.
The transition to the next generation is kind of like the same thing.
Yeah. And I didn't expect it because, Hollywood's really just trying to keep a franchise alive, right? So we're a little cynical when we watch it, but I think they did. I love that they did that movie. Yeah.
Okay, let's do for a couple minutes here. A quote or scene-a-thon, which is we're just going to bounce back between each other, either between quotes or specific scenes that you remember from other movies. Here, let me see if I can start with. Oh, we're going to go old school, right? Okay. Mrs. Havisham. That's oh, come on. Oh, Caddyshack. All right, go ahead.
I was going into golf is for people with goofy pants and a fat ass. Sorry, Happy Gilmore.
That Caddyshack? No,
it's Happy Gilmore. It's when the coach tries to tell Happy, I'm going to teach you how to play golf for free.
Well,
and
best scene in, go ahead.
He wants to talk back and tell the story. But of course, when you said Havisham, I was going to go Bueller.
I was going to say best scene in Happy Gilmore is punching out. Come on, he's the Price is Right guy.
Bob Barker.
Yeah, Bob Barker punches out.
But to me, the best part is when they're like in the principal's office, and because he just had a fight with Shooter McGavin, and it was you got in a fight with the boss of the PGA says you got in a fight with Bob Barker on national television, but Shooter McGavin says, yeah, who won that fight, by the way? That's the best part. That's the best part of the fight.
Yeah, the quick fire ESPN. Okay, how about this one? Up yours.
That is Independence Day.
Very good. That was good.
Yeah, well, that was a very you played that one very, very well.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, I gotta jump. I was gonna feel the need for speed.
Nicole gave me this one. I don't know if I know this one. It says, Cheryl, I do not care. I'm not sure which movie this is from. Nicole, you're gonna have to message me which movie that is. All right, let's keep going.
Yeah. How about one with no words?
Oh, Home Alone. No.
Yeah, see there.
Okay. Oh shoot. Well, I have the guitar riff that goes with it, but I know there's another quote because it's another movie that made me even more endeared to Porsches than I already am, right? Which is da na 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 na. This is old time rock and
yes, but when you did that, I went to Goose playing that song in Top Gun because it's on top of mind.
Oh, well, that's the second song with Great Balls of Fire.
Right. Yeah.
No, yeah. I was trying to do Tom Cruise in Risky Business.
Oh, right. Wow.
Right. And I forgot there's a quote for him. I can almost see it, which is like, I did something like I human trafficked people or something like that. I forgot that the line is now. I got to remember the line from Risky Business.
Yeah. I think my favorite from a movie poster was one of my favorite posters is actually the least of the first trilogy of Spider-Man movies. But it was called in the poster that, the national poster said choice at the top. And it had, Peter Parker as Spider-Man with the influence of, we'll call it ego, but it was Venom.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. Versus the other. And so seeing that duality in a poster to try to share that with human beings was probably the most impactful one to me. I would say here's a quote for you. What's the use in trying to defuse a bomb that's already gone off?
Ooh, I don't know this one.
This is Jack Ryan.
This is not Hurt Locker, right?
No,
that's a good movie too. That's a bomb movie.
Yeah, Jack Ryan in Clear and Present Danger. The president and all of his cabinet are trying to figure out how to get out of being tied to his best friend for laundering money for the Colombian drug cartel. And he says, "What's the use in trying to defuse a bomb that's gone off?" He says, if they ask you if you guys were good friends, say no. Say we were great friends. And so that was
okay. Let's continue on. Let's see. That's a cougar.
Why don't I know this?
Oh wait, because if you're not first, you're last.
Ricky Bobby.
There you go. Yeah, we already talked about it earlier.
Talladega Nights, the Ballad of Ricky Bobby.
We were just saying, because I would just watch this movie called Jexy, which was about a digital assistant that's kind of like Alexa, right? And he makes friends with people who are fans of Days of Thunder, right? Yeah. Or no, Trickle Cole's Days of Thunder. So that's a Thunder, right? That's actually different than Ricky Bobby.
Ricky Bobby, I think, is the satire of Days of Thunder.
Oh yeah, Days of Thunder. That's right.
Yeah, right.
Because we can take quotes from both of those movies.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And this is these are my boys, Walker and Texas Ranger.
Shut up, Grandpa. I've never seen two kids be so bad on television.
Oh, and it was joyful. We had a call last night at Hero School, a call on horror movies, obviously, because of spooky and scary. And but we thought about this theme, and it's interesting with the movies and the quotes you've given here. What makes a horror movie horror?
Ooh. Usually it's surprise, right? Most of horror movies have that magical moment, which is this: you're like impending music, you're walking around, right? And most of the people, if you're there, are screaming at the screen, going, "Don't walk into the graveyard!"
right. We're yelling at them, "Don't go there." Yeah.
and then out of that, something jumps out of you, and if it's done right, you literally jump out of your chair. And that would those things have to be like the key moments to me in a horror movie, at least.
And I used to study it from the perspective of why do teens want to see horror movies, right? And that's because and the National Institute of Mental Health, when they did the first fMRI studies, they said that there's so little of the teen brain that is, if you will, developed, that they're looking for things that can evoke some sort of response in there, like a first response, right?
Yeah.
But in horror movies, I was having a conversation with my wife, and she's coming over from Europe. But so when the American movies are, bootlegged over there and some old VHS or whatever, she was telling me about Night of the Living Dead. But then what bothered her so much, made her sick for days, was how you never knew whether or not the person you loved was infected or dead, or going to come back as your loved one or as a zombie to kill you. And so when you start to look at all of this from Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street, you start to look at, and Jason, is that literally there is a break in trust of norms of our lives, things we take for granted.
Oh yeah.
So Nightmare from Elm Street, someone's in a dream and you're watching them, get cut up without any instruments there. That changes everything about our security of going to sleep, right? So horror is when the rules that we take for granted are now affected or changed by somebody else. We can no longer take those rules for granted.
Oh, okay. I got example number one.
Okay. All right.
Chucky.
Yeah.
because you take a doll, which is supposed to be like to soothe you, right? And blah, 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 be fun. And this doll becomes whack.
Whack, right? The Tooth Fairy movie, right?
Yeah.
So, right, that's supposed to be something that puts money under my thing, not someone hungry for my teeth. Right?
Okay, Nicole is finally giving me all the lines.
Oh, good.
I figured as long as I'm going to be in school, I might as well hit some people while I'm at it.
Oh, this sounds like a great line, but I don't know what it is.
Remember the Titans. It's a football movie. Thank you, Nicole. Nicole is messaging. She's watching and messaging us lines.
Right.
The other ones that we came from here we go. Son, he's not hitting you. He's rubbing you, and rubbing's racing. That was from Talladega Nights.
Oh man.
No, wait, no, I take that back. That's Days of Thunder.
Days of Thunder.
I get the two of them confused. I should go back to Talladega Nights, which is like, Lord baby Jesus, not the old one, the young one, the small. I like it wrapped up in a major. Why do you make a prayer about the old one? Because the young one, he's better.
Yeah. The things you're never supposed to do is say which one's this or whatever. And yeah, so back to that movie and horror, right, is when the kids are more important, or they're allowed to not respect the elders, but just vice versa, right? The elders are supplanted by the younger.
Okay, well, let's see if we can transition movies back into this, which is like, okay, look at this now, right? Everything is a freaking movie now. You and I right now are kind of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm kind of curious for you, what has to happen for you now in these virtual videos or virtual meetings that's like a movie to you? What do you think has to happen here for this to be interesting?
Well, not tonight, but you're talking about going forward in my work. What are you saying?
Yeah, just in general, right? Again, because this is the one thing is like, if we really look at it and you're really passionate around movies, basically now we're making movies all the time.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious from your point of view, like, what do you think they should do, or what should be happening going forward?
Well, there's one thing that makes it a movie versus a documentary, right? The one thing. What is the one thing about a movie? And that is this. It's this edict, and it's the core to Hero School 27 years ago next month. The character must change.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Parker must change into Spider-Man. Luke Skywalker, farm boy, must become a Jedi. Happy Gilmore, loser hockey player, must become pro golfer, get grandma's house back. So the character must change. The same person that starts the movie can't finish the movie and accomplish the impossible, right? So the character must change, right? Documentary, a guy and his cats, right? 30 years and cats come and go, cats die. He's still the same guy, right? Right? Just the cats change, unless you want to turn it into a movie, and now you have Pet Sematary, right? By Stephen King.
Or what's even worse? Actually, last night I met the director of Hoarders.
Really?
Yes, he's from Seattle.
We need to work on a TV show, John. We've got work to do, and we can get it done, but we need to do it like a movie where something changes.
Yeah.
It's not just an account. So back to this movie, something's got to change. Now let's go back to Happy Gilmore as a model or a template, since we had so much fun there.
Yep.
And understand that every character, our Bruce Wayne self and our Batman self, are on a journey, right? It's the same journey, but simultaneously 2 lives. You're not just one person. So you have this outer life, which is the life of want. Why do we sign up to take a course by you, John Chen? Why do we hire you, engage you, right? There's an actual visible finish line that we want. The inner journey is the journey of need. And that in the movies is something no character knows. We all know what we want. In fact, we have to declare what we want. We have to choose the button in the elevator, decide where we want to go, so for the movie to even start. But on the need, we all think we know what we need, but we have no idea. And so the need that we have is discovered by taking the steps through the tutelage of our expert on the way to getting what we want.
So you'll love this part. Wait, so first, have you ever seen Tony Robbins' film, right? I'm Not Your Guru.
No, I have not. I should. It's on Netflix, right? It's
Yeah,
a
it's on
Netflix.
Netflix. Okay,
Yeah.
because Jacques was here. Remember the party
Oh, sure.
scientist?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
Doc was here and he was interested and he goes, I've never seen it, but I want to see it. And I gave him my internal version, which is because I've been at a bunch of those events. So we would stop and either if he had questions or if I had a behind the scenes story of like how all this stuff really works, at least according to how I saw it. And he said it was fascinating. But the key to here, right? The character must grow or change.
Change.
Is really, I think the word I would say is transformation.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about. I mean, in the end, you're trying to transform people. And I think you can do it here on virtual. In fact, actually, Tony actually showed it because he built this $5 million studio and he's had 40,000 people in a class that was on virtual. And he discovered actually he could have put more people in that class than he could in a physical environment.
And I think other people discovered that was possible watching that with Tony. And so, yeah, absolutely. What I discovered, and I think I shared this with you before, how I made deeper connections with the people in a virtual meeting than I had in all of the real life interactions. And of course, some people might say, yeah, Tiger, but your personality, that makes a lot of sense. No, it's not, right? My psychology team calls me a long day. I don't know what era that is, but someone who is considered a long day is someone who speaks too much over lunch when it was just lunch. Anyway, no, so that is upping the bar. And then of course is it also then drives the entrepreneurship and the technology, right? To be able to see more people and the creativity. Like when I saw your setup and the fact that you're still on a ball is just really, it's still amazing. But here, let me add these last two things. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
So the last two things in the movie, I want to just point out using Happy Gilmore. And this is what I got from your Engaging Virtual Meetings conference. Oh. And that is, there were just two things in Happy Gilmore, that inner journey, that were keeping him from being in alignment, being focused, and becoming the grandson grandma needed, right? The person that the world needed. Golf became the vehicle for that. But there were just two lessons he needed to learn, right? And as he found out from Chubbs, it was anger management, right? He needed to find out, right? And I would really say it's not management, right? That's a whole nother movie with Adam Sandler. This is actually anger redirection. Yeah. Right? And to go into your happy place when that anger comes up. And then the second one was your short game.
Oh, yeah.
So he had this big, long drive, but he had a deficit in this one little area, right? With every superpower, there's a kryptonite. And so if you can discover those at the journey, now you've got a full movie. And more than that, you've got a completely different life on the other end. Not, because of your transformation, everything in your world will transform too.
All right. So if transformation transformed into the future, what do you think it looks like?
Well, I left this educational conference and I was a little concerned because we have to face the reality that we have a generation of young people who think they know more than the old people. They do know different than the old people. But I think what this is going to allow us to do is to reach more people in a deeper way across and let me just use one, just across age boundaries. And in order to, I want to say build trust, because I think people start with trust, but we have this generation of young people that may have had one or two bad experiences with an old person, teacher, coach, boss, parent. And this generation was taught to groupify everything, right? So it's all teachers, if it was one. Reminds me of that quote by 16th century, who was the poet, Rumi de Gourmand. And he said that many men who rail against women are really railing against one woman only. Right? Is his mother, right? It's, and so, when somebody is going on and on thinking this person can't ever make it in the top office, I just look at them and smile and say, who hurt you? Who was she? Right? You know, but
wait, because then I could bring up this one.
okay.
No more wire hangers. Right. There you go. Mommy Dearest at its finest.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think what I've learned from this is this educational, this conference that was live was, oh my goodness, we need to at least do hybrids of everything that's currently live and be able to bridge those things. Because again, you know, we've been in places where someone said something on the stage and we knew it, but we also knew that that's going to be misinterpreted by this group behind me. And I think we're gonna greatly reduce the amount of mistranslations and misinterpretations because of this new facet of virtual. I mean, look at us joking with movie quotes in real time, and
in 2 different states. We're in 2 totally different locations, right?
Yeah.
Well, cool. Tiger, if people want to come find you, your hero school, or any of the other stuff you're doing, where can people find you at?
They can find me on LinkedIn as Tiger Todd. They can love to connect with like-minded people. And then heroschool.us is the website that's the portal for all things Hero School.
That's so, Tiger, thank you so much. Thanks for reaching out to me originally. I hope that the reach out has been an ad for you over the time that we've gotten to meet each other. And I look forward to the time that we can collaborate on a project, especially a movie.
Indeed. Let's follow up on your documentary maker and let's move them into movie outcomes. All right. Hey, no, absolutely my pleasure, John. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Tiger. All right. So, hey, this is John Chen. We've been visiting and getting a chance to meet members of our community. In this case, it's Tiger Todd in the Engaging Virtual Meetings community. Hey, if you want to be interviewed, click the button or go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet and pick a 1 hour time, your favorite 1 hour time, and I'll do an interview with you. I'm just here to meet people like Tiger and like you in this community. I hope you enjoyed this interview and getting a chance to meet some of our favorite friends. And today it was Tiger Todd. We'll see you next time.
Don't start people and keep people. Show you got heart. Now we're playing.